This is Paul Stevenson, and I want to welcome you to the Strategic Mortgage Default System video series. This is video number 7 in the series, where we'll be talking about the issue of liability and asset protection in strategic default. Now, first of all, to talk about liability, we need to address the issue of recourse states versus non-recourse states. The question of whether or not you are personally liable for the mortgage balance depends on what state you're in. In a recourse state, you are indeed liable for the entire mortgage balance, even if the house is worth less than this balance when the bank takes it back from you. Florida would be an example of a recourse state where there are many homeowners who are indeed underwater and are facing recourse. In other words, in these recourse states, the bank can sue you for a deficiency judgment if you don't pay your mortgage. In a non-recourse state, an example of which is California, you are not personally liable for any amount beyond what the house is worth when the bank takes it back. In other words, if you owe a lot more than the house is worth, you pretty much get a get-out-of-jail-free card and you can let the bank have it back without having to worry about a deficiency judgment. There are, of course, some exceptions to this depending on the type of mortgage you have within a non-recourse state. So you want to check with an attorney on your state and your particular mortgage, but for the most part, the bank cannot sue you for a deficiency judgment in the non-recourse state if you don't pay your mortgage. Consequently, the poker game of trying to protect your assets and minimize your liability matters most if you're in a recourse state and you do in fact face potential recourse if you choose to not pay your mortgage. The key issue here is if you do face recourse, you have to estimate whether you believe you can stomach trying to outbluff the bank in what amounts to a high-stakes poker game. If you in fact have some significant assets that you're worried about the bank seeing and wanting to come after in a lawsuit, you have to decide, hey, are my savings from this strategic default going to be large enough that it's worth risking some of these assets and having the bank potentially come after me with a lawsuit? One of the issues that will play into this question is whether or not you believe you can write a good hardship letter to justify the reason why you're not paying the mortgage, even though you may still have the assets to continue paying. The bottom line is this: you will win this poker game if the bank looks across the table and decides that based on everything you've presented, it's simply not worth it for them to fight you, and they just want to get your bad loan off their books. The reality of this real estate crisis is the banks can't go after everyone. The fact that a bank may have the legal right to sue you for a deficiency judgment does not mean that doing so is actually the best move for the bank. The banks know that right now the courts are jammed with foreclosures. The public is in favor of the wounded homeowner against the big bad banks. The judicial system and the government may also be against them, and in fact, with these crowded courts, it could be years before a case against you even makes it to court and they find out whether they're going to be able to get any money out of you. It simply may not be worth it for them to bother. In addition, the banks, as I said earlier, have to get bad loans off their books. So if you can set up a situation in this poker game where you make it easy for them to get yours off their books, for example, by setting up a short sale or by offering a deed in lieu of foreclosure and offering to get out quick and cleanly, in return, the bank would have to agree not to seek a deficiency judgment against you, and you effectively get your wish. Now, there's of course no guarantee of what's going to happen, but if you are determining that strategic default is the right move for you, then I would state that now is as good a time as there has ever been to play this poker game against the banks. I've only scratched the surface of the issue of liability and asset protection. I urge you to find more information and to purchase our strategic mortgage default system by visiting my website, www.strategicloandefault.com.